children, when you're sitting idle during vacations, generally it happens when you meet your cousins or when you have a group sitting together, we generally tend to talk about ghost stories. Isn't it fun? So let's listen to one of the ghost stories, something like that, okay? And something that has happened, maybe it can be a funny incident or it can be something which has enlightened whether the place was haunted or not, okay? This chapter's name is The Shadow. Let's read the prologue first to understand what has happened in the story. On a haunted hill, there were the ruins of a deserted house. The residents, including 2 children, had been killed when a bolt of lightning struck the house years ago. An 11-year-old girl has to take shelter at the ruins, caught in a downpour on her way back from the bazaar. As the afternoon dwindles into the evening, her younger brother and a girl, her friend and neighbor, set out in the rain to look for his elder sister. Usha doesn't know that her younger brother and her neighbor are at the ruins. Then, as lightning occasionally lights up the dark interiors of the ruins, the children see ghostly figures of other children. Let's find out if they see each other or do they have company. Alright? So, ये story है जहाँ पे एक haunted सा hill होता है, मतलब that hill is called as haunted hill, okay? जहाँ पे एक घर है और कहा जाता है कि बहुत सालों पहले जब बहुत बारिश हुई थी और उसकी वजह से लाइटनिंग की वजह से ये पूरा घर जो था वो जल गया था और उसकी वजह से उस घर में रहने वाले लोग और 2 बच्चे सब everybody died. Okay, so so that was the story behind this haunted house and the haunted hill. अब एक लड़की होती है, 11 साल की लड़की होती है जो बाज़ार से वापस आ रही थी और तभी अचानक से बहुत बारिश शुरू हो जाती है एंड देन शी हैज़ नो चॉइस बट उसको वहाँ पे शेल्टर लेना पड़ रहा है. अब ये शाम तक वापस नहीं आती करके इसका छोटा भाई, उसके एक नेबर की एक लड़की और एक नेबर, ऐसे 3 जन मिलके उसको ढूंढने के लिए निकल पड़ते हैं एंड दे रीच दिस प्लेस. नाउ लेट्स सी व्हाट हैपेंस हियर. बिफोर दैट लेट्स डू अ वार्म अप. What is the purpose of horror stories written for children? Discuss. Okay? अभी आप बताओ कि बच्चों को horror stories क्यों लिखे, मतलब बच्चों के लिए horror stories क्यों लिखे जाते हैं? Okay, what is the importance? Understand it and you have to think about it and discuss with others. Alright? Let's read. Woo, 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 cried the wind as it swept down from the Himalayan snows. It heard over the hills and passes and hummed and moaned in the tall pines and deodars. On Haunted Hill, there was little stop to the wind. Only a few stunted trees and bushes and the ruins of what had once been a small settlement. So, बहुत तेज हवा चल रही थी. Alright? So, on the slopes of the next hill, there was a small village. People kept large stones on their tin roofs to prevent them from blowing away. There was nearly always a wind in these parts. Even on sunny days, doors and windows rattled, chimneys choked, clothes blew away. So, इस हॉन्टेड हिल के बराबर में और दूसरा एक हिल था जहाँ पे लोग रहते थे और वहाँ पे उन्होंने अपने घरों के ऊपर जो टिन की छतें होती है उसके ऊपर उन्होंने बड़े बड़े भारी से स्टोन्स रखे थे जो क्योंकि इस एरिया में ज़्यादा करके हवा चलती थी. ओके तो हवा से उनके रूफ्स उनकी छत ना उड़ जाए इसके लिए उन्होंने उस पर पत्थर रखे थे. ओके क्योंकि इस एरिया में सनी डेज पे भी काफ़ी तेज़ हवाएं चलती थी. 3 children stood beside a low stone wall, spreading clothes out to dry. On each garment they placed a rock. Even then the clothes fluttered like flags and pennants. Okay? तो 3 बच्चे थे जिन्होंने अपने कपड़े सुखाने के लिए डाले थे, उसके ऊपर उन्होंने पत्थर रखे थे, फिर भी वो उड़ रहे थे. Usha struggled with her grandfather's long loose shirt. She was 11 or 12. Her younger brother Suresh was doing his best to hold down a bed sheet while Binya, a slightly older girl, Usha's friend and neighbor, was handling them the clothes one at a time. Once they were sure everything was on the wall, firmly held down by rocks, they climbed up on the flat stones and sat there for a while, in the wind and the sun, staring across the fields at the ruins on Haunted Hill. So I must go to the bazaar today, said Usha. तो अब ये जो उषा होती है और उसके फ्रेंड, ओके, ये सारे फ्रेंड और उसका भाई मिलके सारे कपड़े सुखाने डाल देते हैं, कैसे वैसे स्ट्रगल करते हैं, उस पर पत्थर रख के वो उसको सुखाने के लिए कपड़े डाल के फैला के वो निकलते। अब वो जैसे ही लाइक वंस दे वर श्योर एवरीथिंग वाज ऑन द वॉल, सब कुछ डल गया है, ओके, और रॉक से सब कुछ उसको टक इन कर दिया है, वो नीचे आते हैं और वो सामने वाले फील्ड्स पे वो देखते हैं कि वो हॉन्टेड हिल्स के रूइंस देखते हैं, उनकी नज़र उस पर पड़ी जाती है, ओके। अब उषा कहती है कि मुझे आज किसी भी हालत में बाजार तो जाना ही है। I wish I could come too, said Binya. But I have to help with the cows and the housework. Mother isn't well. So Binya refuses, saying कि उसकी मम्मी की तबीयत ठीक नहीं है, अदरवाइज वो आ जाती थी कि उसको घर के काम भी हैं और गाय को भी चराने लेके जाना है। I can come, said Suresh. He was always ready to visit the bazaar, which was 3 miles away on the other side of the haunted hill. Okay? No, you can't, said Usha. You must help grandfather chop wood. तो सुरेश तो तुरंत रेडी हो जाता है, बट उषा उसको मना करती है और कहती है कि नहीं, तुम दादाजी की हेल्प करो टू चॉप द वुड। Their father was in the army, posted in a distant part of the country, and Suresh and his grandfather were the only men in the house. Suresh was 8, chubby and almond-eyed. Would you be afraid to come back alone? He asked. Why should I be afraid? There are ghosts on the hill. I know, but I will be back before it gets dark. Ghosts don't appear during the day. Are there many ghosts in the ruins? Asked Binya. So, सुरेश उसको कहते हैं कि तुम अकेले कैसे जाओ, 8 साल का होता है छोटा सा बच्चा, उसको बोले तुम्हें डर नहीं लगेगा? मैंने सुना है कि हिल पे तो घोस्ट है उस साइड पे। तो कहते कि नहीं नहीं, मुझे बिल्कुल डर नहीं लगेगा, और घोस्ट वैसे भी दिन में नहीं आते, मैं तो रात होने से पहले वापस आ जाऊंगी। तो बिनिया भी पूछती है कि क्या वहाँ पे बहुत सारे भूत है? तो grandfather says so. He says that many years ago, over 100 years ago, English people lived on the hill. But it was a bad spot, always getting struck by lightning, and they had to move to the next range and build another place. तो वो बता रही थी कि उसके जो grandfather है वो कहते थे कि पहले यहाँ पे ब्रिटिशर्स रहते थे, बट वो हमें ब्रिटिशर्स एज इन Englishmen used to stay, but they had to live the hill because काफ़ी बार वहाँ पे लाइटनिंग से दे यूज टू गेट स्ट्रक बाय द लाइटनिंग, एंड इसकी वजह से उनको वो दूसरी जगह पे शिफ्ट हो गए थे टू अ न्यू रेंज, एंड दे बिल्ड अ न्यू प्लेस. बट इफ दे वेंट अवे, व्हाई शुड देयर बी एनी घोस्ट्स? Because grandfather says during a terrible storm, one of the houses was hit by lightning and everyone in it was killed. Everyone, including the children. Were there many children? There were 2 of them. A brother and sister. Grandfather says he has seen them many times when he passed through the ruins late at night. He has seen them playing in the moonlight. Wasn't he afraid? So, wasn't he frightened? So, it's like, they're having a conversation and they're trying to find out कि exactly वहाँ पे क्या हुआ था. तब वो कहते कि एक बार टेरिबल स्टॉर्म आया था, तभी एक घर था जिसको लाइटनिंग ने स्ट्रक किया. इट लाइटनिंग स्ट्रक दैट हाउस, और उसकी वजह से उस घर के में जो भी थे सारे मर गए थे, इंक्लूडिंग द किड्स. और वहाँ पे 2 बच्चे थे, एक लड़का एक लड़की. और कहते हैं कि ग्रैंडफादर ने ये भी बताया कि जब वो लेट आते हैं तो उन्होंने उनको खेलते हुए देखा है, मतलब he's visualized those kids playing there. No, old people don't mind seeing ghost. तो बच्चे ऑब्वियसली पूछते कि उनको डर नहीं लगा, तो कहते कि नहीं नहीं, बड़ों को तो घोस्ट देख के कुछ होता नहीं है, okay? They don't mind seeing it. Usha set out on her walk to the bazaar at 2 in the afternoon. It was about an hour's walk. She went through the fields, now turning yellow with flowering mustard, then along the saddle of the hill and up to the ruins. The path went straight through the ruins. Usha knew it well. She had often taken it going to the bazaar to do the weekly shopping or to see her aunt who lived in the town. So अब Usha तो निकल जाती है, okay, to go to the bazaar. और पास करते वक्त there are mustard flowers which are there and it's looking beautiful, but she has to pass through the ruins in order to get to the bazaar. Wild flowers grew in the crumbling walls. A wild plum tree grew straight out of the floor of what had once been a large hall. Its soft white blossoms had begun to fall. Lizards scuttled over the stone, while a whistling thrush, its deep purple plumage glistening in the soft sunshine, sat in an empty window and sang its heart out. So it's like, she's just telling us, okay, यहाँ पे how the environment was, the wildflowers were crumbling, okay, the wild plum was growing, and out of a place which was totally, it was just a large hall, and now there are wild plum trees growing there. Then obviously you can see the lizards passing through, the chameleons, the lizards, they are passing through, okay. So it's like a description of the entire area. Now Usha sang to herself as she tripped lightly along the path. Okay, so obviously Usha was like, while walking, she was humming a song. Soon she had left the ruins behind. The path dipped steeply down to the valley and the little town with its straggling bazaar. So गाना गाते गाते वो उस ruins को भी पार कर जाती है, and she reaches the bazaar finally. Usha took her time in the bazaar. She bought soap and matches, spices and sugar. None of these things could be had in the village, where there was no shop, and a new pipe stem for her grandfather's hookah, and an exercise book for Suresh to do his sums in. As an afterthought, she bought him some marbles also. Then she went to a mochi's shop to have her mother's slippers repaired. The mochi was busy, so she left the slippers with him and said she'd be back in half an hour. She had 2 rupees of her own saved up, and she used the money to buy herself a necklace of amber-colored beads from an old Tibetan lady who sold charms and trinkets from a tiny shop at the end of the bazaar. Usha met her Aunt Lakshmi, who took her home for tea. So now she's done her shopping. She's reached the bazaar. She's shopped for soaps, matches, spices, sugars. Okay, she's shopped for her ग्रैंडफादर्स हुक्का के लिए स्टिक बाय किया, सुरेश के लिए उसने बुक बाय किया, मम्मी के जूते वो रिपेयर करने के लिए देते, स्लिपर्स रिपेयर करने, बट मोची ने कहा कि थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा. तभी उसकी आंटी भी मिलती है उसको. देन दे गो टू हर आंटीज हाउस फॉर टी. Usha spent an hour in Aunt Lakshmi's little flat about the shops, listening to her aunt talk about the ache in her left shoulder and the stiffness in her joints. She drank 2 cups of sweet hot tea, and when she looked out of the window, she saw that dark clouds had gathered over the mountain. अब बातें करते करते टाइम निकल गया, चाय भी पी ली. आंटी अपनी बता रही थी कि मेरे शोल्डर में पेन है, स्टिफनेस है, और वो सारी बातें सुन के तभी उसकी नज़र गिरती है विंडो के बाहर और देखती है कि देयर आर डार्क क्लाउड्स नाउ दैट हैव गैदर्ड ओके ओवर द माउंटेन. Usha ran to the cobbler and collected her mother's slippers. Their shopping bag was full. She slung it over her shoulder and set out for her village. ओके तो जल्दी जल्दी वो मोची के पास जाके अपने मम्मी के स्लीपर्स लेके वहाँ से निकलती. ओके नाउ लेट्स ट्रैक योर परफॉर्मेंस थ्रू योर परफॉर्मेंस ट्रैकर. Quickly answer these questions. Alright, let's move ahead. Strangely, the wind had dropped. The trees were still, not a leaf moved. The crickets were silent in the grass. The crows flew around in circle, then settled down for the night in an oak tree. I must get home before dark, said Usha to herself as she hurried along the path. But already the sky was darkening. The clouds, black and threatening, looked over the haunted hill. This was March, the month for storms. Okay, तो वो जैसे वहाँ से निकलती तब तक तो it was like pretty calm. इतना ये नहीं था. The wind का जो flow था वो थोड़ा सा कम था. Trees were not moving hard like the way generally storming होता है, वैसे नहीं था. Okay, so फिर भी वो सोचती है कि मुझे कैसे भी करके घर पहुँचना है अंधेरा होने से पहले. A deep rumble echoed over the hills, and Usha felt the first heavy drop of rain hit her cheek. और अचानक से वहाँ पे that rumble started, the thundering started, and she felt that the rain had started. Okay, she had no umbrella with her. The weather had seemed so fine just a few hours ago. Now all she could do was tie an old scarf over her head and pull her shawl tight across her shoulders. Holding the shopping bag close to her body, she quickened her pace. She was almost running, but the raindrops were coming down faster now. It were big, heavy pellets of rain. A sudden flash of lightning lit up the hill. The ruins stood out in clear outline. Then all was dark again. Night had fallen. सो अब उसके पास ना छाता था, कैसे वैसे एक स्कार्फ बांध लिया था, उसने शॉल ओढ़ ली एंड देन शी स्टार्टेड वॉकिंग रियली फास्ट, बट द बारिश का जो फ्लो था दैट ऑल्सो स्टार्टेड फास्टर. Okay, it started getting faster and sudden flash of lightning lit up the hill. Okay, and वहाँ पे she could see the ruins, okay, clearly, and then it was totally dark. I won't get home before the storm breaks, thought Usha. I'll have to shelter in the ruins. She could only see a few feet ahead, but she knew the path well and began to run. अब उसके पास कोई और चारा था ही नहीं. So she knew that she had to take shelter in the ruins. Suddenly, the wind sprang up again and brought the rain with a rush against her face. It was cold, stinging rain. She could hardly keep her eyes open. The wind grew in force. It hummed and whistled. Usha did not have to fight against it. It was behind her now and helped her along up the steep path and on to the brow of the hill. Okay, कैसे वैसे करके वो, because the rain was so heavy, okay, and it was all falling on her face and the wind was really rough, okay, कैसे वैसे वो हिल के यहाँ पे पहुँच जाती है. There was another flash of lightning followed by a peal of thunder. Okay, the ruins looked up before her, grim and forbidding. She knew there was a corner where a piece of old roof remained. It would give some shelter. It would be better than trying to go on in the dark in the howling wind. She had only to stay off the path to go over a rocky cliff edge. Okay, तो उसको ज़्यादा distance नहीं जाना था, but उसको पता था कि वो आगे नहीं बढ़ पाएगी. She has to stop somewhere. तो उसको पता था एक corner में एक roof है जो अभी भी है, वहाँ पे उसको shelter मिल जाएगा. Woo, 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 howled the wind. Okay, she saw the wild plum tree swaying bent doubles, its foliage thrashing against the ground. The broken walls did little to stop the wind. Usha found her way into the ruined building, helped by her memory of the place and the constant flickering of lightning. She began moving along the wall, hoping to reach the sheltered corner. She placed her hands flat against the stones and moved sideways. Her hand touched something soft and furry. She gave a startled cry and took her hand away. Her cry was answered by another cry, half snarl, half screech, and something leapt away in the darkness. Okay, so कैसे वैसे करके वो वहाँ पे ruin वाली वो building में पहुँच जाती है. Okay, अब उसको उस जगह की memories तो है, मतलब she knows what her grandfather has told her. कैसे वैसे करके वो खुद को वहाँ पे बैठ जाती है with her hands flat against a stone, okay, and moved sideways, ऐसे करके वो जाती है. तभी उसको कुछ तो ऐसे soft furry चीज़ पे उसने हाथ रखा है, ऐसे feel होता है, जो उसको मतलब जो डर के कूद जाती. Okay, and it was only a wild cat. That's when Usha realizes कि ये तो सिर्फ एक बिल्ली थी. Okay, Usha realized this when she heard it. The cat lived in the ruins and she had often seen it. But for a moment she had been very frightened. Now she moved quickly along the wall until she heard the rain drumming on the remnant of the tin roof. Okay, उसको पता था कि वो बिल्ली वहाँ रहती है. She had already often seen that cat over there. Okay, but अब वो डरी हुई थी. And somehow Usha also managed to find that shelter and go till that remnant of the tin roof. Once under that roof, crouching in the corner, she found her some shelter from the wind and the rain. Above her, the tin sheets groaned and clattered as if they could sail away at any moment. Okay, but they were held down by the solid branch of a straggling old oak tree. Okay, तो जब आपको पता है बहुत तेज़ विंड्स चलती है तो रूफ वगैरह सब कुछ हिलने लगता है, तो इसको तो वही डर था कि कहीं ये रूफ उड़ ना जाए. बट उसके ऊपर वो जो ओक ट्री है ना, उसका सॉलिड ब्रांच था, इसकी वजह से वो वहाँ पे ही अच्छे से फिक्स था. Usha remembered that across this empty room stood an old fireplace and that there might be some shelter under the blocked up chimney. Perhaps it would be drier than it was in her corner. But she would not attempt to find it just now. She might lose her way altogether. अब उसको पता था कि वहाँ पे एक चिमनी है, एक फायर प्लेस था, तो she can hide over there, okay? But उसको अब attempt नहीं करना था क्योंकि शायद से अंधेरा था, इसके लिए she was a bit skeptical about going there. Her clothes were soaked and the water streamed down from her long black hair to form a puddle at her feet. She stamped her feet to keep them warm. She thought she heard a faint cry. Was it that cat again, or an owl? But the sounds of the storm blotted out all other sounds. There had been no time to think of ghosts, but now that she was in one place without any plans for venturing out again, she remembered grandfather's story about the lightning blasted ruins. Okay, she hoped and prayed that lightning would not strike her as she sheltered there. अब वो थोड़ा फिर से उसको आवाज़ें आने लगी, बट द स्टॉर्म, द साउंड ऑफ द विंड इतना हाई था दैट इट कवर्ड अप द अदर साउंड्स. अब ये कैसे वैसे करके थोड़ा सा हिम्मत करके तो बैठी तो थी वहाँ पे, बट देन शी स्टार्टेड थिंकिंग अबाउट द ग्रैंडफादर स्टोरी, ओके, दैट ही हैड सेड. और वो प्रे करने लगी कि आई होप दैट द लाइटनिंग डज नॉट स्ट्राइक मी, ओके, एज शी शेल्टर्ड देयर. Thunder boomed over the hills and the lightning came quicker now. Only a few seconds between each burst of lightning. Then there was a bigger flash than most, and for a second or two the entire ruin was lit up. A streak of blue sizzled along the floor of the building, in at one end and out at the other. Usha was staring straight ahead. As the opposite wall was lit up, she saw crouching in the disused fireplace two small figures. They could only have been children. So, अब ये जो thunders था, lightning था, वो बढ़ते जा रहा था. Okay, and it was so bright in between because of the light of the lightning. Okay, when it struck. Okay, that she could अचानक से जब एक बार ऐसे लाइटनिंग स्ट्राइक हो गई, उसको कुछ ऐसे ऑपोजिट वाली जो दीवार थी उसमें उसको दिखाई दिया दो स्मॉल फिगर्स. ओके, शी सॉ सम टू शैडोज देयर जो छोटे बच्चों के लग रहे थे. The ghostly figures looked up, staring back at Usha. Okay, and then everything was dark again. Now, even they stood there, they were just staring at Usha. Okay, and फिर से बहुत अंधेरा हो गया because after the lightning strikes only for a fraction of a second, and then it stops. Usha's heart was in her mouth. अब वो डर गई थी. She had seen without a shadow of a doubt two ghostly creatures at the other side of the room. And she wasn't going to remain in that ruined building a minute longer. अब वो डर गई थी. उसको पक्का ये था कि she was sure that उसने दो shadows देखे थे रूम के दूसरे साइड पे. She ran out of her corner, ran towards the big gap in the wall through which she had entered. She was halfway across the open space when someone fell against her. She stumbled, got up, and again bumped into something. She gave a frightened scream. Someone else screamed. And then there was a shout, a boy's shout, and Usha instantly recognized the voice. अब वो वहाँ से वो भाग गई उस कॉर्नर से, और भागते भागते उसको ऐसे फील हो गया वो किसी से टकरा गई. And that kid also screamed. और फिर से वो टकराई, फिर से वही आवाज़ आ रही, और फिर उसको एक बॉय की, एक लड़के की चिल्लाने की आवाज़ आती है. And she recognized that voice. It was of Suresh. Okay, Suresh, Usha, Binya, it's me, it's us. They fell into each other's arms, so surprised and relieved that all they could do was laugh and giggle and repeat each other's name. Okay, तो उनको realize हुआ कि ये तीनों ही वहाँ पे थी. Okay, and then Usha said, "I thought you were ghosts." "We thought you were a ghost," said Suresh. "Come back under the roof," said Usha. They huddled together in the corner, chattering excitedly. अब वो तीनों भी huddle करके रूफ के नीचे बैठ जाते. When it grew dark, we came looking for you, said Binya, and then the storm broke. Shall we run back together? Asked Usha. I don't want to stay here any longer. We'll have to wait, said Binya. The path has fallen away at one place. It won't be safe in the dark in all this rain. Then we may have to wait till morning, said Suresh, and I'm feeling hungry. Okay, the wind and rain continued, and so did the thunder and the lightning, but they were not afraid now. They gave each other warmth and confidence. Even the ruins did not seem so forbidding. So, अब वो सोचते कि क्या हम चाहे, मुझे यहाँ पे रुकना नहीं है. उषा कहती है, सुरेश कहता है मुझे तो भूख लग रही है. बट देन बिन्या सेज दैट वी कांट गो नाउ बिकॉज बहुत बारिश हो रही है जिसकी वजह से पाथ खराब हो गए. विल हैव टू वेट फॉर सम मोर टाइम, मे बी टिल मॉर्निंग. ओके, बट नाउ दे आर नॉट अफ्रेड एनी मोर. ओके, उनके मन में जो डर था वो चला गया. After an hour, the rain stopped, and although the wind continued to blow, it was now taking the clouds away, so that the thunder grew more distant. Then the wind too moved on, and all was silent. Towards dawn, the whistling thrush began to sing. Its sweet broken notes flooded the rain-washed ruins with music. Let's go, said Usha. Come on, said Suresh. I'm hungry. As it grew lighter, they saw the plum tree stood upright again, although it had lost all its blossoms. They stood outside the ruins on the brow of the hill, watching the sky grow pink. A light breeze had sprung up. अब थोड़ी थोड़ी बारिश रुकने लगी थी, थंडर्स भी कम हो गए थे और थोड़ा थोड़ा ब्राइट होने लगा था. एंड ऑफ द स्काई वॉज गेटिंग पिंक. ओके, दैट्स द स्काई आफ्टर द रेन्स. ऑलराइट, सो when they were some distance from the ruins, Usha looked back and said, "Can you see something there? Behind the wall, it's like a hand waving." "I can't see anything," said Suresh. "It's just the top of the plum tree," said Binya. So, जब वो उषा पीछे मुड़ के देखती है वहाँ से निकलने के बाद, तो वो पूछती है कि क्या तुमने वहाँ पे देखे, ऐसे लग रहा था क्योंकि हाथ वेव कर रहा है. तो बिनिया कहती है नहीं, ये सिर्फ प्लम ट्री का जो ऊपर वाला हिस्सा है, it's the top of the plum tree. They were on the path leading across the saddle of the hill. "Goodbye, goodbye," voices on the wind. "Who said goodbye?" asked Usha. "Not I," said Suresh. "Not I," said Binya. "I heard someone calling." "It's only the wind." So it was the sound of the wind which जिसकी आवाज़ आ रही थी as though it was saying goodbye to them. Okay, so there was no one there, but it was just the sound of the wind. Usha looked back at the ruins. The sun had come up and was touching the top of the walls. The leaves of the plum tree shone. The thrush sat there singing. "Come on," said Suresh. "I am hungry. Goodbye, 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 goodbye." So Usha heard them calling, or was it just the wind? So Usha के कान में यही आवाज़ गूंज रही थी कि is it the wind or is it the sound of someone actually being there? सो कभी कभी हमारे मन में जो चीज़ बैठी रहती है, हम वहम करने लगते हैं. वी स्टार्ट फीलिंग दैट ओ इट्स स्टिल देयर. वी स्टार्ट विजुअलाइजिंग थिंग्स. इट्स ऑल इल्यूजन दैट प्लेस ऑन आवर माइंड. और हमें शैडोज़ नज़र आती है, आवाज़ें सुनाई देती हैं. ऑल्दो दोज वॉइस आर, दैट इज़ बिकॉज व्हेन वी आर स्केर्ड, with fear we start getting to hear such sounds, but in reality it is nothing like that, and it's just the sound of the nature that's around. All right, so children, I hope that you also come across with such funny horror stories, and you don't have to be scared of anything, because there's nothing like ghost in the world. All right, so now quickly reread this chapter, do the important words, the difficult words, their meanings, and don't forget to do the back exercises.